It took me a little over a year to get into medical device from pharmaceutical sales. And it was based off persistence. I met somebody one year, told me I wasn't quite qualified to come back. And I came back the next year and they were, extremely happy to see me and see that I didn't give up and, keep it pushing like some people do. And I got an interview and I got in. So, when people reach out to me and ask for, advice on LinkedIn and they want to meet or they're interested in roles, the one thing I always tell them is be persistent.
Hello and welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast. I'm your host, Samuel, founder of a revolutionary medical sales training and mentorship program called the Medical Sales Career Builder. And I'm also host of the Medical Sales Podcast. In this podcast, I interview top medical sales reps and leading medical sales executives across the entire world. It doesn't matter what medical sales industry, from medical device to pharmaceutical to genetic testing and diagnostic lab, you name it, you will learn how to either break into the industry, be a top 10% performer within your role, or climb the corporate ladder. Welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast. And remember, I am a medical sales expert sharing my own opinion about this amazing industry and how it can change your life. Jaymen, how are we doing today?
Good. How you doing, man?
I'm fantastic, man. Why don't you tell the audience who you are and what you do?
Yeah. So my name's Jaymen McClain. I'm a senior cardiac rhythm management sales rep for Medtronic. In short, I sell pacemakers, ICDs, and loop recorders, so implantable cardiac monitors in the space. I work with mainly electrophysiologists and interventional cardiologists and general cardiologists across the board.
So with your role, you're in the procedures.
Yep. In the room doing implants every day.
Wow. Okay. So you know what? I think the best thing we can do for everybody listening right now is just give them a day in the life. Talk to us. You're waking up at what time? What happens first and take us all the way to when you go home at night?
Yeah. So, a normal day, wake up pretty early, probably about 5 o'clock. Plan to be out the door by 6:30. I'm on the road. I cover several accounts across my area, between surgery centers and hospitals. Get to the hospital, educate my patients, talk them through the device, how it works, what they should expect after the fact, and answer any questions they have. Then I, get to my procedure room, meet with my customer, kind of go through what we're going to do with this patient specifically. There's a lot of different indications and different therapies that we give. So just really honing in what's perfect for that patient. We do the implant in the cath labs mainly. Sometimes we're in the ORs, depending on what we're doing. After the implants, we end up, making sure everything, personally, my role within the implant is bringing the product, making sure, we have the right things for this patient, as well as programming my device based off what the physician is asking us to program. My follow-up after that is, patient gets off the table, goes back to the room, they get all the information they need. I move on to the next patient. Sometimes it's one case, sometimes it's 7 cases. It really just depends on the day. We also cover clinics and checks in the hospitals. We have all-day clinics where the follow-up to the implant is making sure your device is getting checked and it continues to work throughout its life.
Okay. So just add a little context. So you get your first account. Is it usually you're going from hospital to hospital, or is it usually you're in one hospital all day with a number of patients?
So there's times where I've circled all of my accounts in one day, just implant at different locations. My physicians, they go all over the place. So it's not just, one hospital. It's usually multiple.
And how long is it just depends, or is there usually an average time?
It really just depends. A case could be anywhere from 25, 30 minutes to a couple hours.
Wow.
I've been in an 8.5 hour case.
Okay. Wow. Wow. And when you get there, you talk to the patients. What's that normally like? Are they pretty anxious? Are they kind of like, just tell me what's going on? How do they look at you as the guide, for lack of a better word, when you're about to go into a case?
So, you're really there to make the patient feel comfortable and confident on top of what, the physicians obviously deliver on their own. It really just depends. Some patients are like, sure, let's get it over with. Sounds good. Some people are, asking a million questions, some that have nothing to do with the procedure. But, Yeah, it just really depends, man. Every patient's different.
Well, give us an example of a question that has nothing to do with procedure that you've gotten a few times.
Oh man, this one kind of pertains to it, but it's always a funny one. I always have my one liner for the responses. They ask, microwaves, ovens, can I, am I able to get near those with my device after the fact? And, my response is always like, yeah, microwaves, ovens, everything's fine. Just don't get in it, and you'll be okay.
I love it. I love it.
And they tend to love that one.
So in senior cardiac rhythm management,
Mhm.
what's the relationship like with the physician? Are they like, you guys are best buds? Are they like, man, Jaymen is the resource, I'm going to tap into him? Are they still like, no, I know everything, Jaymen, you're just here to help? Give us the dynamic between you, the rep, and your physicians.
Yeah, every customer is different. I have customers that I'm best friends with, and we hang out on the weekends or the weekdays, and we're good friends. And I have customers that are all business, and it really just depends on kind of how they want to interact with us as reps. And I just match their energy and make sure that I'm a resource no matter what. If they don't want to know how my weekend was, that's totally fine. But I'm going to make sure I have everything he needs.
Got it.
And so that's kind of, it just varies.
Got it. And your days, because every day can look different, is there an average time you're usually getting home, or it really doesn't, you have no idea, depending on the day?
That's the biggest thing about this life is it's a toss up and you have no idea until you get home. I could have a day where, I'm kind of hanging around, just doing a lot of computer work, catching up on emails and stuff. And then I have days where I'm in cases for 12, 13 hours, 14 hours and getting after it. So it could change. We're cyclical out here in the sense that, in the wintertime, we're super busy. We're running. It's, we average 10 to 14-hour days.
Wow.
In the summertime, you could end up on the computer for most of the day, just catching up on emails, maybe do a case or two.
So is it an on-call lifestyle? You're at home doing your computer work and then suddenly you get a call and you got to run to a case.
Yeah, exactly. It's on call. We take day call, night call, weekend call. I actually have a team of 8 at the moment that I work with. I have clinical specialists is what they're called. They're my support team. Definitely wouldn't be able to do it without them.
Right.
But so during the day, I make the schedule and kind of get everybody where they need to go. And then as things add on and things change, it's very dynamic. It's definitely not a thing where you have your day planned the night before and then you know exactly what the next day looks like. It changes rapidly.
Take us there, right? Because people listening right now might not be anywhere near this space and they're trying to visualize what you're saying. Take us into a day where you are trying to get everybody to be where they're supposed to be. It's dynamic. What are you doing? What does it actually look like?
So every night we have a calendar that we, have all our implants on that are scheduled, device checks, things like that, meetings. All that gets divvied out at night based on physicians and kind of strengths of each individual team member. And I, every night I look at that, I move stuff around, give it to, everyone. And then the next day, if everything goes smoothly, you end up doing, what was on your schedule the day before, and then, you're done for the day. A lot of times what happens is, patient comes in, they need a device, it's urgent, it's emergent. Docs want to add it on same day or within a couple hours, and you end up having to move pieces around in order to get those things covered. In my specific area, I have, about 40 customers that I cover. So
wow.
Take a lot to make sure we get that done and make sure the patients get what they need.
So talk to us about your role versus the clinical specialist.
Yeah.
And then how new business is generated. So I'm assuming, you have your 40 customers. You've been in the territory for a minute. You've developed amazing relationships. Tell us what your clinical specialists are doing, and then tell us what you're doing to generate new business.
Yeah. So on the surface level, the clinical specialist and myself as the sales rep, we do a lot of the same functions in terms of covering cases, covering clinics, getting the daily work done. Where my role steps further is, I'm obviously the one responsible for the number. I'm the one who's responsible for setting the plan of attack going forward, making sure everybody's focusing on getting new products out there, making sure we're capitalizing on the opportunities that we have. So mine goes a step further, physician dinners, customer meetings, and setting up those things. That's really the gist of that. But then we get into, the new business aspect of it, which makes this role more difficult than, just having unlimited prospecting is
Right.
You're confined to an area. There's only so many customers within that area that you can call on. So when you come in, it's a lot less of like a cold call, walk in, find the business kind of thing. It's you have customers, you have the EPs who are your primary customers, and then the interventional cardiologists who also implant. It's really getting them to move the needle towards your direction, building those relationships, showing them why your product is better, and, getting them to trust you and look at you as an asset, not just another rep, So it's a longer sales cycle in terms of growing the business. It's not something that overnight you're just going to, flip the switch. Especially a lot of these guys have been doing it for a long time. They know, you get reps in here who've been 20, 25-year reps with these customers, and you come in as a new salesperson. And now you're fighting a 20-year relationship trying to break through.
Take us there. Come on, we got to know. You got to take us there. Take us there. And if you want, you can use an example or something you saw. Yeah. How do you effectively do that, right? I mean, I think you highlighted it beautifully for people that are interested in what you do. You got 25-year reps that have amazing relationships, and said electrophysiologist or said interventional cardiologist uses their product and is fine and comfortable. And you're the new guy that's trying to butt in and make something happen. What does earning that business actually look like? Talk to us about that.
Specifically my approach, everybody's different, but my approach is honestly coming in and being an asset in the room. What's worked well for me is that, I learned the space quickly. I learned how to use my products in the way that they're intended to. When you get into difficult situations, that's really when you win, in the sense of, anybody can walk in and do an easy case and just drop product. That doesn't move the needle. That's just showing up and doing the case. Sure. It's when things get difficult and, a physician's standing there and we've been trying this for an hour, 2 hours now, and we're trying to figure this out. It's being in the room and being able to say, hey, why don't we try this? How about we do this because this, my product works this way. And then those little wins, obviously you have to be right in that scenario. You don't give bad suggestions. But those little wins are the ones like, oh, okay, like I trust this guy. Like, he knows what he's talking about. Like, okay, he is an asset in my case. Like, I don't have to, I'm worried about what's going on with my patient, but then I'm also worried, is my rep doing what he's supposed to be doing? Does he know what he's doing? And that's the way I've been generally able to grow my business, is be an intelligent asset in the room. I'm like a second brain for my customers, when things get difficult. And then, obviously the relationship building side of it is, just getting to know the customers. A lot of these guys, they're funny guys. They want to talk. They want to,
sure.
They want to conversate.
It's like everybody else. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, and that opportunity exists because you're in the room with your competitors.
Not necessarily in the room, but we do, we end up around each other quite a bit. Some people play nice, some people don't. I tend to be one of the people that, I know we're all here just trying to do the best we can as salespeople. I'm not going to be disparaging to my competitors or anything like that. Okay. We all have something great to offer, that can help patients. So we do end up in the room.
So when you say you're in a procedure and something isn't working, is it looking like the provider's trying to use something that someone else has? It's not working. And you're now saying, why don't you try it this way? And now they're like, oh, wow, I'm going to consider Jaymen next time I have this kind of case.
Less of it being like a competitor's piece that they're using, and more of, the access site is difficult, or, accessing the coronary sinus is one of the places we have to put a lead. Just different tools that we have to get in there. Sure. And, a lot of these guys, they've been doing it a long time. They know, they know what they like, they know what they want to use, but it doesn't always work. So when those times come, when it's like, hey, I know we use this all the time, but let's try this other thing that I have that, may be better for this. So it's more just knowing your own product and knowing how to, keep the case progressing
Got it.
based on that.
So you've been doing this 7 years. You've seen a lot of good, and I'm sure you've seen a lot of bad. Just so people have the context, what's the wrong way to go about trying to get new business in your space?
The one thing I was told when I started as a salesperson long ago until today, I tell everybody that comes in that's new, the customers we work with, they're extremely intelligent. They know what they're talking about, and they expect you to know what you're talking about. The absolute worst thing you can do is pretend to know your product, pretend to know your space. 99% of the time, if a customer asks you a question, they know the answer. They're just trying to see if you know the answer. The worst thing you can do is lie to a customer. If they ask you, hey, Jaymen, how does this work? It's like, it's this, and this, or, this product will work great for this patient, even though it won't. The worst thing you can do is lie. And once you lie, it's very difficult to get back to a good spot. So don't lie. Know your product.
So, you live a dynamic life. Every day looks different, 10 to 14 hours sometimes, especially, and it looks like it's seasonal. You especially, because you've been in your space for a little bit, you're in charge of moving a lot of pieces and you have to be able to adjust. It sounds obvious, but still tell us, what type of person should consider getting into your space and what type of person should probably stay away from your space? I hope you're enjoying today's episode. And I want to let you know our programs cover the entire career of a medical sales professional. From getting into the medical sales industry, to training on how to be a top performer in the medical sales industry, to masterfully navigating your career to executive level leadership. These programs are personalized and customized for your specific career and background, and trained by over 50 experts, including surgeons. Our results speak for ourselves, and we're landing positions for our candidates in less than 120 days in top medical technology companies like Stryker, Medtronic, Merck, Abbott, you name it. Would you run an Ironman race without training and a strategy? You wouldn't. So why are you trying to do the same with a medical sales position? You need training, you need a strategy, and you need to visit evolveyoursuccess.com, fill out the application, schedule some time with one of our account executives, and let's get you into the position that you've always dreamed of.
Work-life balance is something we struggle with a lot, in this space, because it is on call, it is weekends, it's holidays, you miss birthdays, you miss parties, you miss all the things that we love to do in life, and not all the time, obviously, but there's going to be a Christmas that you're at the hospital, you're working, a Thanksgiving, for example, I'm supposed to be working New Year's this year. So,
Fun stuff.
So, if you're looking for a work-life balance where you're able to, work in healthcare, but you're also able to make sure you're home on time on the week, at night, and you're not working on the weekends, your phone stops at 5:00. If that's what you're looking for, then this is not the life for you. My phone, even when I get home, I get text messages at 10:30 from my customers at night, 4 a.m. We've come a long way with technology where when you're on call, you're not really getting up at 2 a.m. and going to the hospital. But when I first started, we were, I'd get a page at 2 a.m. and I'm up, I go to the hospital, I come home, and then I got to get back for a 7 a.m. case. And, so we've progressed a lot from that, but it's one of those things where you really you're here for the patients, right? We're here to make sure people are healthy and continuing on their lives. So there's a sacrifice that you make to that.
Sure. Now, you're there to prep the patient after the procedure. When they're on the other side, do you get to follow up and keep in touch with the patient, or is it pretty brief, or how does that work?
Throughout the life of the device, like I said, we still have to check patients and stuff like that. It's always fun when you're in clinic and you come across a patient that you specifically did the implant on, a year later or 2 years later, and like, oh my God, hey, it's great to see you. Like, it's the patient interaction, honestly, for me, that in those 14-hour days when it's 6:30 and I'm exhausted, and the patient looks at me, like, oh my God, I feel so much better. I thank you so much for what you do. Those are the moments that keep you turning.
Amen to that, man. All right. Take us to the moment. It can be recently, it can be when you first started, where you were like, oh my God, this is my job. Where were you? What was going on? What did you see that just, you were like, I'm actually doing this?
It's a tough one. I think it had to be somewhere in my first year.
Sure.
Maybe shortly after my first year when I got signed off. Our training process is about a year, so it takes us a year before we get to do things on our own. We had done an implant on a patient. She was, or they were, heart rates 30, heart block. They come in emergently, get a pacemaker. They'd been feeling bad for a long time. We follow up about 10 days later in the clinic. And the way that they looked at me when I walked in the room, from the change of, walking around with a heart rate in the 30s, the heart block, to now they're back to 60, 70, whatever she was set at. She's able to move around again. She's able to play with her grandkids again. Just the way that she looked at her, she's like, thank you so much. I feel so much better. Like, that was the moment for me. I was like, okay, like we do this for the patients. Like this is awesome to hear this stuff. And we get that consistently, but the first time I heard it was awesome.
I love that.
Just to have that feeling.
That is amazing. That's amazing. All right. When it comes to who you call on, besides electrophysiologists, well, first of all, electrophysiologists, interventional cardiologists, are they the same? Are they different? Or is it literally just depends on the person?
They're different. So think of it as plumbers and electricians. Okay. So electrophysiologists deal with the electrical systems of the heart, and then interventional cardiologists deal with the coronary side of it. So the plumbing side of the.
So do you need to have a different approach when you speak to them? Or does that still come down to the personality? Or is there like an overarching personality with interventional cardiologists versus electrophysiologists?
No, I would say, everybody's unique. They're all extremely intelligent. So like I said, you know what you're talking about. But, it's just based on who they are as a person, how they kind of conduct themselves.
And have you seen a change in the attitude towards reps when these guys come out of school? He's smiling. So I know you say, so you better speak on this because you're smiling now. So talk to us about that.
I don't think it's necessarily specific to people coming out, as they get out of fellowship and start working on their own. But there's definitely, in this space, there's some people who really just, they want to be friends. They want to be, they want you to be part of their team. They rely on you, they respect your opinion. And there's some people that do come out, they just, it's all business and, and that's okay too, but it's all different. I don't think that it's changing with the generations. I think there is a little bit of loss in the value of your rep, but I think that's more across the board. The people who look at us as a resource tend to be great partners, and the other people who just think we're there to drop product and not be helpful tend to be, those are your tougher customers, unfortunately.
Sure. Now,
you treat them all the same.
Yeah. Yeah. In a lot of these medical device spaces, there's this conversation or this theme of you got to be someone who can help control the room to the best of your ability as a rep. Talk to us a little bit about what that looks like in cardiac rhythm management.
Yeah. So, in our space, controlling the room is kind of like I said previously, is when you get into those difficult times, being able to let the physician know when something's going wrong. If you're seeing something that, is maybe hindering the case or maybe may end up in a bad outcome, it's being able to step forward and say, hey, doc, what do you think about this? Or, hey, doc, I think we're in the wrong space here, which is tough to do because, if you're a new rep and you come in and you're with a tenured physician and they may be in a hurry or something, and something goes wrong and you want to step up and say, hey, I think this is wrong. I think we're in the wrong space or maybe we're using the wrong tool. It's very easy to accidentally overstep, in the physician's eyes, but not being afraid to do that can ultimately be, what's best for the patient. I've been in situations where I've had to step forward and say, hey, I think we're in the wrong space. And, the response is, no, we're not. I know where we're at. And it's like, hey, no, we're in the wrong space because X, Y, Z, lay it out to them. And be like, look at this, look at this, look at this. This is what I'm looking at. What do you think? Do you think we're still in the right spot? And then, it's like, oh, you know what? I think you're right. I think we're in the wrong spot.
You get more respect when those situations occur, or is it more like they don't want to admit they're wrong?
Those are the times I was talking about where you actually earn the respect. It's a very fine line that you tiptoe, though, that can also go the opposite direction, and you can get kicked out and never be there again. So
have you ever kicked out, Jaymen? Have you ever kicked out?
And, I pride myself on the fact that I have not been kicked out yet.
Okay. We're the true expert over here. Okay. No, that's good stuff. Good stuff. Talk to us a little bit about the other people that are in these spaces. You have your physicians, but what about everybody else? Who are some of the other people, other players that you have to have good relationships with and you're normally talking with so that the audience knows what you're kind of dealing with?
Yeah. Myself, I work mainly with like the inventory management, the lab directors. Somewhat, I end up working with a lot of the like procurement managers and things like that, especially with new products. Not often. Like I said, it's only when we're launching new items do I have to interact with them. But for the most part, the people that help me the most on a daily basis are like the lab managers, with timing and changes and, add-ons, stuff like that. Inventory management, they are extremely helpful, especially when things start going on back order, which, if you're a rep, then you know what I'm talking about.
Right.
Just partnering with them to make sure that you continue to have everything you need for your customers. But those tend to be the most important people in the hospital. Outside the hospital, you got your clinic managers and, your MAs and things like that you work with.
Okay. So we're going to bring this to a close, but a few more questions. What type of money do people make in this space? What's the range for when you're new and someone like you, 7 years in, 10 years in, what can you hope to look to make that lets you know you're doing a good job?
Yeah. From what I've heard, at least, every company's a little different. They all pay percentages different and they all pay implants different. And obviously, it also depends on the size of your territory that you're walking into. Obviously, like any sales position, when you do a lot, over plan, then you get paid a lot more. But I would say, I'd expect anywhere from a small territory, one of the smallest ones that you'll find, they'll probably pay you anywhere from 180 to, the big guys are probably making maybe 400 or 500 plus, maybe. Those are massive territories doing, 13, $14 million a year consistently. Then you can expect to probably be in that upper range. But I'd say most people probably fall in the 250 to 350 range, I'd imagine.
Makes sense.
On a normal territory size.
Okay. And in this space, is everyone kind of the attitude of, I want to be a rep for as long as I can, make as much money as I can, grow my territory as big as I can, and I'm out? Or do you see a lot of people trying to say, I want to be a rep, then I want to get into management, I want to get in-house, then I want to be a senior leader? What does it typically look like for the career track of cardiac rhythm management?
So it depends, right? I mean, you get a lot of legacy reps that have been around for 20 years. They were making a lot of money back in the day when pacemakers cost a lot more than they do now.
Sure.
And they stuck around for 20 years and they just, they made tons and tons of money and had a great time.
Yeah.
I think as the younger generations start to come through, there's more of a drive to, get out of the sales role and, be a manager. Kind of, myself, that's kind of been my path that I've been working on is, getting my sales experience and then working to move on into management and senior leadership at some point. I would say, if you're looking for money and that's what you want to make, and you're trying to just really get the financial benefit of being in medical sales, then, most people just be a rep their whole life and they're okay with that. Once you get into the life and, you get used to the life, it's one of those things where you can just keep going. I will say you do get burnt out pretty quickly, on call.
Yeah.
I think there's a few other specialties that take, more call than we do, but we're up there. So burnout's pretty easy.
Sure.
And that's usually what happens. You'll get to that 6, 7, 8 year, 10-year range. And you're like, all right, tired of the pager, I'm ready to
I get it.
I'm ready to move on.
I get it. Do you have any like hobby that kind of keeps you going, that allows you to keep the energy up and keep, just keep up with the lifestyle that you've chosen?
I like anything that goes fast or goes bang. So that's kind of, those are my hobbies at the moment.
I get it. Awesome. Well, this was fantastic, Jaymen. Anything else you want to share with our audience? Like, again, people are listening to this. They're in medical sales in different spaces, or they want to be in medical sales. Anything you want to share with our audience before we close it up today?
Yeah. For the people that are already in medical sales and you're maybe looking at transitioning over, I'd say just, make sure that you're willing to make the lifestyle change. Shock for a lot of people. For the people looking to get in, I would just say keep being persistent. My story it took me a little over a year to get into medical device from pharmaceutical sales. And it was based off persistence. I met somebody one year, told me I wasn't quite qualified to come back. And I came back the next year and they were, extremely happy to see me and see that I didn't give up and, keep it pushing like some people do. And I got an interview and I got it. So, when people reach out to me and ask for, advice on LinkedIn and they want to meet or they're interested in roles, the one thing I always tell them is be persistent. These jobs don't open often. They're hard to get into, but when they open, be persistent. Keep your hand up. For people looking to get in, there's different programs. There's, like the EOIS program. I think it's great for those people to get in, get to learn a little bit about, the different specialties and how they could interact with those and really match them with something that would be good for them and their lifestyle and what they're looking for. We definitely try and find all the different hiring pipelines that we can to find the best talent that we can to be successful and continue to grow our businesses.
Yeah. Fantastic. All right. We got one more thing to do, Jaymen. Are you ready?
Sure.
All right. It's called the lightning round. I'm going to ask you 4 questions. You have less than 10 seconds to answer. All right. First question is, what is the best book you've read in the last 6 months?
Oof.
You say, I don't got time for that.
I have been slacking on my book reading.
I don't have time for that. I work 10 to 14-hour days. All right. Next. Fair. What's the best TV show or movie you've seen in the last 6 months?
Ooh, Landman.
Okay.
Landman is hilarious. I love that show.
That's what's up. All right. Next question. We want the item and the restaurant and location, if you can remember. What's the best meal you've had in the last 6 months?
My favorite place is Dominic's out here. Dominic's Steakhouse.
Where? Tell us exactly where.
Scottsdale, Arizona.
Okay. Dominic's Steakhouse. All right. And last but not least, what's the best experience you've had in the last 6 months?
In business or in...
Whatever's the best.
I would say the best experience I've had outside of my work is watching my kids grow up. I'm a father of 2. So,
hey, what ages?
I've got 4 and 13.
Amen, man. Do they want to
them grow?
Cardiac rhythm management reps when they grow up?
Probably not.
Awesome. Well, Jaymen, it was a pleasure having you. Where can people find you?
Yeah. I'm on LinkedIn, Jaymen McClain. Feel free to reach out, and I'm always happy to answer questions and things like that.
Well, keep doing amazing work, Jaymen, and thank you for being on the Medical Sales Podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And remember, I have a customized and personalized program that gets you into the medical technology industry as a sales professional or any type of role for that matter. Become a top performer in your position and masterfully navigate your career to executive level leadership. Check out these programs and learn more at evolvesuccess.com by visiting our site, filling out an application, schedule some time with one of our account executives, and allowing us to get you where you need to be. Stay tuned for more awesome content with amazing interviews on the Medical Sales Podcast.